you know, there's the negative experiences like we just talked about, you know, the violence, and there was also a lot of positivity. So you're introduced to your mentor, billionaire, in prison, and he taught you a lot about not only accountancy but also mindset, and that was really important for your self-development and ultimately the birth of Confit.
Yeah. Look, like I said, you know, growing up, you know, coming from like all those backgrounds, you don't really know what's out there, right? I went to prison and I saw the commonalities of everyone, you know, the common denominator. Obviously, majority of the people came from a lot of disadvantage, definitely a lot of childhood trauma. But one other thing was the lack of education. I don't think anyone in the yard that I was with at the time went past anyone went into university. You know, no, like I could tell by the way people talked. And I was a part of that statistic as well. You know, I dropped out of school in year 10. And I was my only focus was on becoming a career criminal because that's all I knew. And now that I'm in jail, they say that jail is a university of criminals to network and learn from other criminals to become better at crime. But you know, there was a pivotal moment where I was having a chat with these so-called, you know, career criminals who had a real name for themselves, and they've done more than half their life in prison, right? In and out, in and out. And there was a question that I asked all of them actually, and they all said the same thing. I was like, well, if you're meant to be the 007s of the criminal world, all right, and you're so good at crime, why do you guys keep on coming back to jail? And the answer they all said to me was, "There's no guarantee in this life. There's no guarantee you're going to be safe. You know that, and that's a risk that you have to take." And I was looking at like a 13-year sentence, you know, and I'm like, I'm not doing this again. If I continue down this path, my next sentence would definitely be double digits in jail, you know, maybe more. Like I'm probably gonna get way more than what I previously got. I was like, I can't do another day in jail once I get out. I can't live this life anymore. You know, I want something different with my life. I want something more positive, but I don't know how to do it. I'm like, where do I start? And I was reading this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. And this is a Let's Go Jail. And I was reading this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and in the book it said accounting is the language of business, right? And I was like, oh, you know what? I know illegal business, so why don't I go teach myself? You know, I got a lot of time on my hands. This legitimate business, right? So I went to the prison library, got myself an accounting textbook, and as soon as I opened it up, I was just like, I can't do this. You know, what am I reading? This is like hieroglyphics to me. You know, like what is this kind of stuff? Equations? What is this? You know? And then that same day, someone walks into the yard, and he wasn't having a real good time in jail, because the rumor was that he was a billionaire accountant. Everyone was trying to extort this guy because they heard the word billionaire. All I heard was the word accountant, right? And I was like, this guy can really help me, right? So I gave him a proposition that he couldn't refuse, and you know, I said to him, no one's gonna lay a finger on you, and make sure you get the protection of all the boys. In return, you teach me accounting every day. And he ended up becoming my cellmate. And not only did he teach me accounting, but he taught me about business. He taught me about the value of education. And most importantly, he taught me about self-worth. You know, I had to meet a positive mentor in jail. That was the first time I had a positive mentor in my life. And I could see he taught me so much more than these things that I just mentioned, but he is telling me about his business trips overseas, his business dealings with people, his understanding of human relationships and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I never knew about any of this kind of stuff, you know, and really like, you know, got me to want to change. I was like, I know these opportunities are out there now, you know, and what he did was just map out the path that I could possibly take. You know, I ended up doing my HSC in jail. Because my mentor was like, well, if you do HSC, there's a possibility of you going to university. Through university, a lot of other doors will open. You know, like it's not for everyone, but he told me a few options that can happen. That's what I wanted, you know. And it was that mentor who helped me to change my perception on life. And you know, we're doing the same thing with our mentoring programs right now in youth justice centers. It's the same thing. What my mentor did for me when I was in prison is to just map out and show young people possibilities and opportunities of what could be, rather than what they only know in their current circle right now. And that's where lived experience mentoring comes in as well, and to show them that we've also been to prison, we've been there, done it, and we were able to turn that around. And I think that was the biggest part. What my mentor taught me was about being able to help others as well. He had to show me first to understand. Now I'm showing others, and then we've got a whole team on Confit Pathways of lived experience mentors who are now we're trying to scale that impact, to change as many young people's lives as possible who are currently incarcerated.
And so that moment, you got a lot to thank for Natalie from UNSW, one of your mentors from the university realm. But she, she did wonders for you, as we'll talk about. But when we get to Confit and UNSW, but you didn't shed a tear throughout your time in jail until that day when you received your offer of acceptance into UNSW. So tell us about that moment in time.
Yeah. So when I was getting sentenced at court, and the judge called out 13 years, I was just like ice cold, no emotions. I was like, inside, I was shattered, but I was also thinking, you know what, that's what I did, and it didn't really affect me as much. Even like 9 years of prison life, there's a lot of heartaches that you go through, the frustrations of missing out on funerals, weddings, everything else, everything on the sun. Like you're taken away from society. You're pretty much rotting inside. The world is moving, and you're kind of stuck. And that didn't faze me either. Like it didn't really affect me as much. So in my whole time since I got arrested, I never cried. And this is after when I completed my HSC. And applied for uni, and my mentor and I, we moved to different centers. I was sitting in Wellington Correctional Center playing cards, and the officer walks up to me and he hands me this letter, and he goes, "Kwon, I don't know how you did it, but you bloody did it, mate." And I was like, what is this guy talking about? And I took that letter into my cell out of curiosity, and as soon as I opened it up, it read, "Congratulations, you've been accepted into the University of New South Wales." You would not understand. Like, I was holding on to that letter, and I started bawling my eyes out, because no one in the center will understand the feeling of freedom that I was feeling. No one understood the amount of, now, Andrew, like, I know the training side, like for you to be able to lose a certain amount of weight and to become a certain person, it was the same thing. That's a physical and mental thing. But this was like literally nights of, I was literally staying up till 2 a.m. studying, because this is the future that I wanted to chase. I had officers ripping out my textbooks because they're going, "Why are you studying? Waste of time." They used to take my textbooks away because they go, "You're hiding stuff in here." And I had to like, go through a semester without a textbook and write to my lecturer saying, the officer took my textbook. I don't have a textbook. I had no computer access. So all my research material had to be done. So everything I did was much harder than what a normal conventional university student would do, because they could just go online and print out whatever, or look online libraries and stuff. I never had access to that. I had to have education staff. I had to go early on to tell them, these are the materials that I need to find. And if I couldn't get the information out of that, I had to make sure that I did, so it was twice as hard for me to study than a normal person. And when I got accepted into UNSW, just all that came back going, no one will understand what I had to go through to get here, but only I know. And this is the start, because education literally set me free, and for me, that was my freedom. That was my way out of this life, and that, in my head, I was adamant about it, and it worked out. I ended up going to university as soon as I got out. Ended up studying a course creating social change. And I never knew what a not-for-profit or a social enterprise was until I started learning about it at university. And I was like, look, I've got a business idea, which is actually a social enterprise, and that lecturer who's holding that lecture, Dr. Ali Walker, today she's a board member of our not-for-profit. It's come full circle.